Predators, drowning, crashing waves, darkness. Deep sea divers are always on a thin line between life and death every time they take a dive in the abyss of the dark ocean. But perhaps the horrors of the deep ocean are worth tackling if in exchange we discover unexplainable things. From a giant squid to a bottle just as old as Canada, here are the 15 strangest things found at the bottom of the ocean. Number 15. Giant squid. Diver Yosuke Tanaka and his wife get a once-in-a-lifetime experience while diving in Toyooka City in Japan in 2023. They were alerted by local fishing equipment vendors about sightings of a gigantic creature lurking in the waters. Tanaka and his wife gathered their diving equipment and dove straight in the abyss, hoping to come across the massive creature. When they reached the depths of the ocean, they were met with a big surprise and had a close encounter with a gigantic being. They were met by a giant squid, an 8-foot-long behemoth that rarely comes close to humans. This 8-foot-long behemoth is massive, but it's not the biggest of their kind. These creatures can grow up to 43 feet long, but we never see them since they live around 1,000 to 2,000 feet underwater in the abyss of the ocean where the sun barely penetrates. The Tanakas were extremely fortunate to have an encounter with one of these majestic animals alive and swimming in shallow waters. So how did the squid end up in shallow waters? It's highly probable the squid was nearing the end of its life. The squid seemed to be in poor health when it surfaced, so it came to shallow waters to live out its last days. Regardless, the squid served as an unforgettable encounter for the Tanakas and the researchers who witnessed it. Before we dive deeper down the list, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Number 14. Giant squid egg sac. On October 6, 2019, Ronald Rash and his team were exploring a World War II shipwreck just off the western coast of Norway when they came across this giant transparent orb at around 55 feet beneath the surface. At first glance, this floating object might look like an alien blob, but what you're seeing is a giant squid's egg sac. It is then when Rash and his crew captured this giant egg sac on camera. Squid eggs are even more impressive to witness than giant squids given their massive size. This just goes to prove how massive these creatures are just by looking at the size of the egg sac, which is just as big as an adult human. This specific egg sac belongs to the 10-armed southern shortfin squid and are incredibly rare and delicate, making close encounters and detailed studies extremely difficult for marine biologists. Each sac can easily contain between 50,000 to 200,000 baby squid, packed in a sphere that can grow to over 3 feet in diameter. The sac is made from squid ink and mucus. This protects the developing embryos from the outside environment. Despite protecting the embryos, the egg sac itself is transparent, allowing divers to see tiny transparent eggs ready to hatch into baby squids. Sightings of these egg masses have been reported in various Mediterranean locations, including off the coasts of Spain, France, and Italy. Seeing one up close is always a special treat. So if you ever see a blob floating, you might be witnessing one of these rare discoveries. Number 13. 900 bottles of 100-year-old booze. The year is 1917 during the height of World War I. Swedish cargo ship SS Kairos is transporting a load of French cognac and Benedictine liquor for the Russian aristocrats. Out of nowhere, the cargo ship is intercepted by a German U-boat who sinks the Kairos to the bottom of the ocean. The ship sank into the ocean at a depth of 252 feet and remained untouched for over a century in the freezing waters of the Baltic Sea, preserving the ship and its precious cargo. In 2019, Peter Lindbergh and Dennis Asberg led an expedition conducted by the Ocean X team. The Ocean X team made it their mission to recover this historic cache, still lying at the bottom of the ocean. Despite the depth, the team did the unthinkable and recovered 900 bottles of century-old booze preserved by the icy ocean water. The haul included 50 cases of cognac-branded Dartman & Company and 15 cases of Benedictine liquor. Despite being 100 years old, the contents of the bottles were still drinkable, but not many people would risk taking a sip. The bottles were estimated to have a combined value of over $1 million, although the exact price of the bottles fetched at the auction was never revealed. Number 12. Enigma machine from World War II. Abandoned fishing nets at the bottom of the ocean sea pose a threat to marine life, so it's necessary to clean them up. In 2020, a group of divers were given the task to clean up these ghosts' nets at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. However, the divers got a lot more than what they bargained for. They stumbled across a rusted device covered by algae that looked like an ancient typewriter. When they brought the object back to the surface, they were surprised to find out the device they brought back was not an ancient typewriter, but a rare Enigma machine. During World War II, the German forces used this object to encrypt military communications. This object was considered the engineering marvel of its time when it was first invented and was designed by Arthur Scheras after World War I. The Enigma device featured rotor wheels that created coded messages by scrambling letters. The receiver needed another Enigma machine set to the same rotor positions to decrypt these messages. This complex system allowed the German forces to transmit secret information until Allied code breakers led by Alan Turing cracked the code. This particular Enigma machine found by the divers had 3 rotors, suggesting it was being used on a German warship. The device was likely thrown in the ocean at the end of World War II, when German forces sank their own ships to prevent them from being captured and looted by the Allies. The discovery of this Enigma machine is one of a kind, as a very small amount of these devices have survived to this day. The Enigma machine was handed over to the Museum of Archaeology after being salvaged, where it's being preserved for further studies. Number 11. Wood-eating worm becomes sulphur-eating monster. This creature you're looking at is a giant sulphur-eating shipworm. That's right, a giant sulphur-eating shipworm. This bizarre sci-fi abomination was discovered in the Philippines and is not actually a worm, but a clam. Wood-eating shipworms have been a maritime nuisance for centuries, munching through wooden ships and docks. The giant shipworm has evolved in a completely unexpected direction, and we were clueless about them for a very long time, until recently. The sulphur-eating shipworm discovered in the southern Philippines is a distant cousin of these wood-eating shipworms. The habitat in which they were discovered was filled with rotting wood and other debris, which made the living conditions perfect for these creatures. For some strange reason, scientists discovered these shipworms have evolved to thrive on a sulfur diet aside from wood. A lot of hydrogen sulfide, a gas known for its rotten egg smell and toxicity, was discovered in their habitat. It seems these creatures adapted and learned to get nutrients from what's abundant around them. Scientists discovered that giant shipworm gills have symbiotic bacteria that oxidize hydrogen sulfide, producing carbon compounds that feed the shipworm. This symbiotic relationship allows the shipworm to grow to such immense sizes without relying on traditional food sources like wood. Number 10. The ancient weapon. On October 16, 2021, sport diver Shomi Katsun embarked on what he thought would be a routine dive in the Mediterranean Sea. Little did he know, this dive would lead to a remarkable discovery. As he dove towards the seabed, Katsun's eyes caught something unusual. There was a strange artifact among the sand and rocks heavily covered with barnacles and marine life. Not yet aware of its historical significance, Katsun carefully picked up the artifact and realized he had discovered an ancient sword with a distinct shape. The sword had a straight blade and a 30-centimeter hilt. This made Katsun bring the sword back to the surface for further investigation. When he surfaced and shared his findings with the experts, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The sword was identified as a 4-foot-long iron weapon, estimated to be around 900 years old, likely dating back to the Crusades. These were a series of religious wars launched by Europeans to reclaim their land from Muslim rule. The area where Katsun found the sword was known to have been a significant battleground during these conflicts, making his discovery even more remarkable. Experts believe it was used by a crusader knight, leftovers of an era when knights in armor clashed in epic battles for control of sacred lands. Realizing the importance of preserving this historical artifact, Katsun handed the sword over to local authorities, hoping that researchers could preserve it for decades, perhaps centuries more to come. Number 9. The Vegas of the Roman Empire. Dinner parties, luxury, nightlife. The Romans did it all long before Vegas. The Roman elite chased pleasure during the glory days of the Roman Empire. They loved to party so much, they built a whole town dedicated solely to social gatherings. Baiae was located northwest of the Gulf of Naples and was a prominent resort city for Rome's rich and famous. Known for its hot springs, beautiful landscapes, and infamous hedonism, Baiae attracted notable figures like Nero, Hadrian, and Julius Caesar, all who owned luxurious villas there. It was a city of history and secrets, and could be compared to Las Vegas for its wild parties and scandalous activities. Even Emperor Caligula left his mark here by building a 3-mile-long pontoon bridge across the Bay of Baiae and rode his horse across it to show off his might. This all came to an end in the 3rd century, when the seemingly untouchable city was put to an end by the forces of nature. You see, Baiae was located close to volcanic vents, and seismic activities and geological phenomena caused it to slowly sink. By the 8th century, almost the entire city was beneath the sea, and on top of that it got raided by barbarians, which led to its complete abandonment. The once mighty Baiae is nothing compared to the grand city it once was, and now serves as an underwater park where divers can explore remnants of its past. Number 8. The haunting undersea graveyard. 1,100 miles northwest of New Guinea is Chuuk Lagoon, a small part of Micronesia. Little was known about Chuuk, but once it was explored, its deadly history began. It was occasionally visited by Spanish explorers in 1528, but it was already home to natives who were already at war against each other. In time, Spanish colonists mitigated the war and claimed the area, which they then sold to the Germans in 1899. Japan later gained possession of the area after Germany lost it following its defeat in World War I. Chuuk Lagoon never enjoyed peace. In the Second World War, Chuuk Lagoon became an important Japanese naval base. It became known as the Gibraltar of the Pacific Ocean and housed a formidable fleet including battleships, aircraft carriers, and submarines. The lagoon became a critical asset for Japan's military operation in the Pacific, since its natural harbor provided strategic protection. This came to an end in February of 1944 when the U.S. launched Operation Hailstone, a massive assault that involved continuous air raids for 2 days. Over 40 Japanese ships were sunk, and over 250 aircrafts were destroyed during the assault. Operation Hailstone took the lives of thousands of Japanese soldiers and sailors, and today all that's left at Chuuk Lagoon is an underwater graveyard. Beneath the water of the lagoon lies the ghost fleet of the Japanese naval base. Divers who visit the area often return with eerie stories. They describe sudden drops in the water temperature, mysterious currents, and the sensation of being watched. Some even claimed seeing apparitions of sailors and hearing voices speaking in Japanese. Whether these tales are true or not, we cannot deny the dark history of the Chuuk Lagoon. Number 7. Mysterious 17th century cauldron. In 1622, a Spanish ship called Santa Margarita sank during a hurricane, carrying a fortune in gold and silver off the coast of Florida. A mysterious object that looked like a cauldron was recently discovered near the shipwreck, but further analysis revealed that it might be more than that. The object lacks any signs of charring and heating, and because of that, researchers believe the copper dome wasn't used for cooking and are convinced it had better uses. Taking the fact that the dome was discovered near a shipwreck, it could have been something valuable, like a part of an early diving bell. Diving bells were among the first devices used by humans to explore the underwater world and were used to salvage artifacts from shipwrecks. They worked by trapping air in the vessel, which they then lowered in the water. Divers could stay inside the bell and breathe the air in the bell while they worked on the seabed. The diving bell was taken in by the Mel Fisher Maritime Museum in Florida and measures 58 inches in diameter. This goes to show how far we've come when it comes to underwater exploration. Number 6. Tailing sperm whales. Imagine sleeping underwater and you somehow need to find a way to breathe. This is exactly what whales experience every time they fall in a slumber. Every now and then, divers encounter a group of whales floating in the middle of the ocean with their heads facing up. This strange sleeping position is necessary for them because, unlike most sea creatures, whales can't breathe underwater. They need to come up for air every time, which means they can't be fully unconscious while sleeping. So how do they do it? They utilize something called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. This allows one part of the brain the rest, while the other one remains active. Basically, one part of the brain stays awake to handle breathing, while the other part gets some much-needed rest. Apart from the two hemispheres of their brain working together, their unusual sleeping position allows them to quickly float to the surface and take a deep breath. They typically sleep for about 20 minutes before having to float to the surface, catching some air, and then going back underwater to continue resting their massive bodies. Number 5. Underwater anomaly that cuts electricity from diver equipment. Swedish divers from the Ocean X team came across a 70-foot-long disc-shaped object 300 feet below the surface in 2011. Nothing new, as a bunch of strange objects have been found at the bottom of the ocean. The object may be strange-shaped, but it could be a completely natural formation. However, something strange started happening when divers got close to the object. As divers grew closer to the object, they noticed their electrical equipment stopped working. Their cameras and their satellite phones only worked when they moved away from the object. The object's peculiar shape and the strange phenomena surrounding it led to various theories. Some believe it to be a part of an alien UFO, while others believe it to be an ancient relic from the Ice Age. Scientists have examined samples from the site and think it might be a natural geological formation or a volcanic rock. However, its exact origins remain a mystery to this day. Number 4. The Bronze Arm. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient technology that was discovered in the Antitha shipwreck off the coast of Greece. However, there were more artifacts discovered in the shipwreck. Divers discovered a bronze arm along with a mystery disc. Researchers believe these fragments are a part of up to 9 statues that are supposed to be around the wreck. They further believe these statues to date back to 2,000 years ago. However, to this day, the statues the researchers spoke about have never been found. Number 3. 2,000-year-old preserved pill. Around 120 BCE, a Roman shipping vessel called the Rialto del Pacino sank off the coast of Tuscany. Now, more than 2,000 years later, a team of archaeologists sent divers to excavate the ruins to haul up plans of running wood. It was then they discovered some historical artifacts, including a small tin container. This small tin container looked like nothing impressive at first glance, but what's inside completely astonished researchers. Inside of the small tin container, they discovered perfectly preserved Roman pills. The tablets were later analyzed by Italian chemists, who discovered a sophisticated blend of ingredients containing zinc, iron oxide, starch, beeswax pine, resin, and other plant materials. Researchers believe these pills were used as eye medicine or eye wash. This aligns with the medical practices described by ancient authors like Pliny the Elder and Dioscorus. These tablets gave scientists the chance to study Roman medicine, giving us yet another valuable insight on Roman history. Number 2. Oldest submerged city known in the world. In 1967, marine archaeologist Nicholas Fleming discovered an underwater city called Pevla Petri beneath the surface of the Mediterranean Sea. This underwater city is incredibly well preserved, with the layout still clearly visible. The streets, buildings, courtyards, and tombs can still be seen. And so far, archaeologists have identified at least 15 buildings with multiple rooms. They have also identified complex water management systems featuring channels and pipes. With complex systems like this, nobody would guess the Pavlo Petri is an urban center built between 3000 and 1000 BCE during the Bronze Age. The city remained preserved so well because of its submergence caused by earthquakes and rising sea levels. Pavlo Petri remains the oldest submerged underwater city in the world, and there is still a lot about the city that remains unknown. Number 1. The bottle as old as Canada. In 2015, John Krause was scuba diving in Nova Scotia's northwest arm when he discovered something unexpected. He discovered an old bottle dating back to the 1870s and 1880s, meaning the bottle Krause discovered is nearly as old as the country of Canada itself. The bottle was identified by its distinct markings and traced back to Alexander Keith's, one of Canada's oldest breweries, founded in 1820 by Alexander Keith, a Scottish immigrant. When the bottle was recovered, it was in excellent condition and was still corked. Researchers analyzed the contents and found that the beer inside was still drinkable, despite the bottle being almost 200 years old. In the end, Krause decided to keep the bottle for himself and preserve the bottle for the years to come. These underwater discoveries are definitely interesting, and if you have any other deep-sea discoveries you would like to share, feel free to leave a comment down below. Also, check out our other cool stuff that'll spark top-tier curiosity. See you in the next video.